People have really gone downhill. There are no longer directors or screenwriters like before. The great Stanley Kubrick has long been gone. Looks like the official staged broadcast of the Artemis II splashdown was filmed by some intern. I'll put it bluntly, even Tinto Brass would have shot it much better. By the end of the broadcast, even the commentators seemed to have questions for the scriptwriters. It all started rather plainly. A dull voiceover, set against excellent quality video from the Orion spacecraft cabin, monotonously describing how American spacecraft were cruising across California. It's astonishing how high quality the video feed is, from inside the Orion spacecraft cabin, thousands of miles from Earth. Then compare it with the low-quality footage from the recovery helicopter right near the surface. Then some guy droned on about how they supposedly decided to abandon skip re-entry for returning at escape velocity, because the long deceleration path, approximately 3,000 miles, caused chipping of the heat shield. So, they decided to shorten the braking distance to approximately 1,700 miles and enter steeply, with a direct re-entry into the atmosphere, to protect the thermal protection shield. In short, you get the idea. Hard braking preserves the brakes. But here's what's interesting. While this guy was talking, they showed a landing trajectory that passed over Russian territory, roughly eastern Siberia, Kamchatka. Then suddenly the director switched to the mission control room, where a small number of staff were clearly idling. Curiously, at that exact moment the crew was describing seeing a sunrise over the west coast of Australia. Did he say Australia?
Is passing over the southwest coast of Australia now at an altitude of some 7,600 nautical miles.
I understand that all of this is just for illustration, and the trajectories are drawn purely for visualization, so they shouldn't be taken too literally. It's remarkable how the video quality from the Orion cabin rapidly deteriorates as it approaches Earth. And it's the same camera angle the whole time. Where are the astronauts' faces, for heaven's sake? By the way, the commentator mentioned that for Artemis I, the atmospheric deceleration path was 3,178 miles. But that's in the past. It's now been cut in half, to 1,701 miles. But that's nothing compared to the situation in the European flight control room where numerous staff, why are they even there, are attentively watching the American mission control room on the main screen. And notably, the Europeans are laughing and drinking right at their workplace.
Fine-tuning of its trajectory to bring it to this point where we are dead spot on down the middle of the corridor trajectory-wise to bring integrity down.
Integrity impact to the camera controller fail is no Cab 1 views of the chutes.
Upon exiting the plasma, the onboard camera controller failed. As you've probably guessed, the video feed from the Orion cabin ended there. Never happened before, and now it does. Surprising? Not really. If you believe the map, the landing site was deliberately chosen to be remote, so that not a single outside observer would be present. To wrap up the space part of the mission, there's a significant inconsistency between how NASA originally described the landing trajectory and what we actually see. Initially, all diagrams showed a northern atmospheric re-entry. Even the reputable broadcaster CBS published a similar graphic on the day of landing. All of this contradicts NASA's official report, according to which, Orion re-entered from the direction of Australia, a southern path. Interestingly, official sources like the NASA website prefer to avoid clarifying this situation and simply stay silent. Now, let's move on to the splashdown and the bathing part.
Splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Before entering the dense
Splashdown
atmosphere,
confirmed.
the onboard camera conveniently failed. We didn't even get to see the backs of the astronauts' heads, let alone their faces, and then, right after splashdown, the radio also just happened to fail. What timing? Luckily though, the astronauts somehow still had a satellite phone and were happily sending messages to mission control. The operation began rather oddly. Boats and motor launches from the recovery team arrived fairly quickly, within 12 minutes. But instead of acting immediately, after visually inspecting the capsule, they moved away and formed a floating cluster that looked more like a film crew on location. Only 40 minutes after splashdown did a motor launch approach the spacecraft to open the hatch and enter it. I counted about 8 people on board wearing military trousers and black t-shirts. The recovery team went in for a boarding action. And they opened the hatch of the spacecraft.
1,000 yards away.
Notice, the boat is now almost empty.
Plenty of people
Out of 8
on the
people,
boat
only
here,
3 remain.
Glued to the side, closest to where they can see all this action, and again, with just 3,000 yards separating us, great views.
The
from
question
bow
is,
here.
where did the other 5 go? Well, those 5
You can
quite
see now
openly
that side
climbed
hatch is
inside the
open.
spacecraft in full view of the
One of the
audience.
Navy personnel is about to get inside there. In they go.
And now, dear space enthusiasts, a question. If 5 grown men managed to squeeze inside a not-so-spacious descent module, what are the chances that anyone else was inside?
With each astronaut assessing them.
Attention, the correct answer, 0. The capsule volume is less than 9 cubic meters. Even 5 people would be cramped. Fitting 9 people, 5 sailors and 4 astronauts, is physically impossible, as that would leave less than 1 cubic meter per person. Then something even more unexpected happened. The now almost empty recovery boat detached and left. The capsule was carelessly left in the high sea, hatch open, without any additional flotation support. A 1-meter wave would be enough to flood it and send it to the bottom. Incredible, life-threatening negligence. Are these really rescuers? Notice, there are plenty of people inside, all dressed in black, and not a single one in an orange astronaut suit. To an onlooker, it strongly resembles a floating film set, don't you think? So, you thought the astronauts were inside wearing orange suits? Not at all. There's some bald guy in a black t-shirt sitting there, talking to someone on the phone.
8 people inside.
Then another rotation took place. This time, an inflatable raft, known as a front porch, was brought to the side hatch to receive the exiting astronauts.
We now have 2 crew members out. Reed Wiseman out of the vehicle, all 4 crew members now out of Integrity.
All 4 crew members have exited the capsule. As you've probably guessed, 4 of the 5 men who boarded the capsule changed into orange spacesuits, posing as the crew of Artemis II. So where is the 5th member of the boarding team? Here he is, the 5th one. He calmly exits last and now stands around in shorts and a t-shirt, chatting on the phone.
Time was different, and so they had to go straight to the
Then
moon.
the astronauts were lifted one by one by helicopters flying nearby.
Lost its momentum. But,
This method is
after
so
that, NASA kept
archaic
moving
and
along
risky
those
that
paths,
even the
right? So we
commentator
recognized
remarked
during Apollo
irritably that they could have just
reusability was
used a
gonna be important.
boat.
We spent a lot of money on those machines, and,
She
we spent a
doesn't
lot of
get
money
it.
on these
This
machines
isn't for
here.
the astronauts.
Even
It's
though-
for
but
staging
we
heroic
recognized the
footage
greatest
for
Thank you for
viewers.
joining us, Amit. Amit Kshatriya,
Interestingly,
Associate
the
Administrator,
helicopters
as we
didn't
begin
hover.
to hoist,
They
the
pulled
crew
the line
onto
with the
helicopters
passengers
to
while
head back
moving
to the recovery
forward.
ship. Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you, Rob.
congratulations, Amit.
After that, nothing interesting. An official welcome
There we
aboard a
see
U.S.
Christina
Navy
there,
ship.
also smiling. Finally
By the
carrying
way,
out waving
there's an
at our
answer to
camera.
why helicopters
Hello
were
to you,
used.
Christina, yes?
Simple. There are 4
Welcome back.
helicopters on the ship,
Welcome
but
home.
only 2 were used to lift astronauts, 2 people each.
A loudspeaker
That's the
announcement
trick.
on the ship
The
saying,
first
"Welcome
2
home,
helicopters
Integrity."
take away the astronaut figures somewhere out of sight, and the other 2 bring back the recognizable crew members.
Victor in great spirits. I can't see who he's talking to, but I
But
kinda
here's
think
the
that he might be
question.
talking to his other
Do
2
the
crew
directors
members.
understand what a person looks like after spending 10 days without hot water, without a shower, unwashed, unshaven, hair unclean? Because these gentlemen do not look like people who have just returned from a long space mission.